We've made that possible. Our genius has been abused.
Yeah, I'm gonna hate both of you. Now, no one's really commented on this, but I figure at least one person's probably thought about it, that I hate the new series in general, and Russell T Davies and David Tennant in particular, but that's mostly not true, and to prove it, here's a review for a classic series story. Colin Baker is my second favourite Doctor overall, and my favourite living Doctor. And having said that, this is his first adventure, and it's shit. Now let's kill the son of a bitch! This is back in the days of no pre-credit sequences. Why are there none? Because, unlike the new show, these are multi-parts. They have enough trouble coming up with thrilling shit to go at the end of each episode without having to add to that. This is also the time when the Doctor's face would appear in the intro. Colin appears to be made of 80s-ness and fairy dust, and the title is made of neon. Why? Because it's so timeless. The music for this intro is the classic Peter Howell version of the theme. Yeah, it's probably the best theme the show had in the 80s. Not to say that I didn't like the others, I feel they're unfairly maligned. Colin Baker's second series theme might have sounded like it was being done by a hamster playing the bagpipes. And Sylvester McCoy's theme might have sounded like a video game being played backwards. But I prefer them both over the versions done by Murray Gold in the new series. Why? Because Murray Gold's stuff tends to sound like an orchestra with additional twiddly bits, and to me the Doctor Who theme should first and foremost sound weird, and these ones certainly do. Now on to the episode I should have spent the last few minutes talking about. We open on these guys playing sci-fi chess stand in number 341, subsection B, category triangle, because the Doctor had regenerated at the very end of the previous story, The Caves of Androzani, and who was to see what's going on there when we can see what these idiots that we don't care about are doing. Note the futuristic-y costumes. Unlike the new series, these are, what's the word? Oh yeah, laughable. But they also look futuristic-y. The new series costumes might look better, but logically they're much stupider. So point to the twin dilemma over the new series. These two twins are Romulus and Remus. Given that they're either aliens or humans from the far future, they're a bit iffy on this point. It's just natural that they should be named after the founders of the Roman Empire. They were also cast because they were twins and the script called for twins. They didn't cast non-twins or rewrite the script when they discovered they couldn't find any twins of the right age who could actually act, but that's just one of the many, many things that are going wrong here. Another thing can be encapsulated by this line.
I honestly believe that neither of you has the faintest idea of your real powers. Your mathematical skill could change events on a massive scale, don't you realize that?
There are mutants here with the ability to count really high. So nearly 3 minutes in, or in New Who terms, 1 pre-credit sequence, 1 intro, and 17 pop culture references in, we finally see the Doctor in the TARDIS. It looks like this for 2 reasons. 1, they didn't have the budget for anything bigger or better, and 2, white then still meant futuristic. The Doctor gets a look at his new face and doesn't comment about how much he looks like the Time Lord security guy Captain Maxwell, who was also played by Colin Baker, who shot him 18 months earlier. He also loves his new look.
A noble brow.
So he not only turned into a guy who tried to kill him, but he actively loves his new self. You could write a book about the psychology of that, but there's no time to do that because the Doctor has to insult his previous incarnation.
My last incarnation. Oh, I was never happy with that one.
Why ever not?
It had a sort of feckless charm, which simply wasn't me.
Great way to get the last guy's fans onto your side, Mr. Shoot Their Hero, take over the role and insult their hero. Now, I didn't much like the 5th Doctor, so I think this is brilliant, but I can see why fans didn't warm to Colin in the role. So, because the Doctor's a bit like clockwork, he immediately has to choose a new outfit. His choice was controversial and looks like this. Yes, that's not an explosion in a paint factory, that is his regular outfit. Now, I personally like the coat. I'd love a replica of it. I'd fucking wear it out and about. It's the rest I'm not too fond of, except maybe for the waistcoat. I wish they'd gone for understated and darker for the rest of the outfit. So having dressed up, it's time for the Doctor to strangle his companion. It's okay, she doesn't die, or rather, seeing as Perry's one of the less popular companions from this era, maybe it's not okay. But I still like her. My second favourite companion overall. Who's my favourite? Jamie.
O flower of Scotland, when will we see your like again?
So yeah, strangulation. The Doctor's unstable after his regeneration, similar to the way that David Tennant crashed the TARDIS and then fell asleep. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I probably would have liked David Tennant more in the role if the first two things he did after regenerating were insult Christopher Eccleston and try to kill Rose. But back to the story. He decides that he needs to become a hermit for reasons of story necessity, and so makes the TARDIS head to wherever the next couple of episodes are primarily set. And speaking of wherever this scene is set, the twins' futuristic society has mid-80s style computers and keyboards with no symbols on it. Fear their technology. Fear it! So an old man teleports in, compliments them on their mathematical ability, and they finally get around to asking who he is.
Who are you, by the way?
Without adding the expected dress-wearing, mildly creepy, paedophile-looking breaking into our house motherfucker. To be expected, really. The word paedophile rarely ended up in kids' TV in those days. So he puts these green stickers on their wrists and takes over their minds and teleports them away, somewhere where they are captured by these horny Klingons and this walking snail-shaped turd. They're put in a cell where they immediately try to escape, but the brilliant security measures of the horny Klingons cannot, it seem, be thwarted. Well, by anyone less intelligent than a piece of chalk. So the father tells this member of Space Precinct that the badly acted twins have been kidnapped. Space Precinct sends ships after the horny Klingons' ship, who, like all true horny Klingons, fire on the police ships, which crash right next to TARDIS in a manner that's way too impressive to actually show on screen. Then we find out that Perry, the Doctor's companion, has no peripheral vision.
But no one could have lived through this!
Then stay behind! This is work for heroes, not for faint-hearted girls! So, no one could have lived through it, eh?
Perry is not a popular companion. I'm in the minority because I actually like her. She's supposed to be an American, but sounds like this.
What absolute rubbish! You were almost young. I really liked you, and you were sweet.
And rather disturbingly, once appeared as Colin Baker's wife in a weird, low-budget film made by professional Doctor Who fans that featured all the then surviving Doctor actors, Nicholas Briggs, who currently plays the voice of the Daleks, and oddly enough, Alan Cumming as a villain. Nicola Bryant, who played Perry, auditioned for the role of Janeway in Voyager, something that for me would have really improved the show. But no, the world was denied the highest level Doctor Who Star Trek actor crossover of all time, or at least until I take over the show and cast Alexander Siddig from Deep Space Nine as the Doctor. So the Doctor has picked up a man who barely survived a spaceship firefight and a crash into a planet and dragged him into the TARDIS and left him on the floor of the control room, thus proving that whatever he's a doctor of, it's not medicine. And perhaps sensing that he nearly killed him, we end on the injured man coming back to life and pointing a gun at the Doctor, which gives Colin Baker the chance to do this face, which I think is supposed to be acting, but I'm not really sure, and part 1 ends. 3 more to go. Part 2 reveals how the Doctor survives, and he did that by standing there and letting Perry talk to the guy until he passed out. Another example of the character's towering genius.
He was going to kill me, Perry.
No, he wasn't. I've seen the Christmas Invasion during the first 13 hours of your regeneration and therefore are practically indestructible, for another 8 hours or so at least. But that was a retcon and the 6th Doctor's a bit of a drama queen, so it's okay. So back with the bad guys, the dress-wearing pedophile old guy is with his young victims, the badly acted twins, who according to the episode are doing mathematics. Mathematics here played by a half-drawn crossword puzzle. So what does the mathematics mean? Well, the episode doesn't say, but the old man explains that they're being taken to the planet Gioconda to work for its new ruler, who was the snail turd from earlier.
Professor Edgeworth is a merciful being. He believes in the sanctity of life. I do not. Fail to obey him once more, and I will have your minds removed from your bodies and use them as I wish.
Well, now we all know what would happen if Darth Vader ever visited the town in Uzumaki.
Have you understood? I see that you have.
Yes, Slug Monster, that's what a nod signifies. So back in the TARDIS, the Doctor uses the finest Star Trek medical technology and declares that the guy will be okay once he's had a few hours rest. And then he goes on about how awesome he is while trying to keep the camera from noticing that the guy who's still asleep has been perched on a chair and could easily fall off and injure himself. The Doctor then decides, because the injured and delirious guy mentioned children, therefore important children have been kidnapped and were brought to this planet, instead of assuming that the guy was injured and delirious. This is the sort of stupid the Doctor's right because he's the Doctor regardless of logic shit that annoys me so much in the new series. But at least with this, you get the impression that the writer intended for the Doctor to be the stopped clock telling the right time twice a day. So they go to the scanner and the Doctor finds something fascinating.
What? What?
That!
A hill that's had a boob job?
Yeah, look at that symmetry. That's no part of nature's handiwork.
Like I said, hill that's had a boob job. So the Doctor decides to go to the boob hill, and Perry points out there's a lot of radiation outside and they could die. So not just content with having made the previous trip outside fucking stupid, the Doctor and Perry head outside to walk to the boob hill which could possibly kill them. And just so you know, anti-radiation drugs were first introduced in this TV show back in its second story back in 1963, so that whole discussion was a little bit pointless. So outside they walk to the dome and the burning, crashed spaceship that was right beside the TARDIS is nowhere to be seen. Who's surprised? Not me. So the badly acted twins have finished their equations. Apparently their mathematics can create a small sun.
If you transform all those equations into terms of power, you'll have enough energy there to generate a small sun.
I don't think mathematics works like that. And then they are sent to sleep in what looks suspiciously like a brothel. So Perry and the Doctor go wandering around inside the hill boob, actually a bunker of some sort, and they come across the horny Klingons. This gives the Doctor the chance to do this.
Oh, no, don't shoot. It's not my fault. I'm just a poor pilgrim. It's all her fault. Mercy. Don't shoot me.
Now, in most episodes of Doctor Who, this would be some sort of a trick. Not this one. So the horny Klingons take them to the old man.
Some of this technology looks familiar.
It must have been that time I was in a Flash Gordon-themed nightclub. So the horny Klingons talk to the old man about how they found them in the corridors, and I've just noticed that these two look a lot like the horny Klingons seen earlier. Are there only two of them? Do all the species look alike? Is it just luck? Or did they run out of costume budget? So the old man's a Time Lord and an old friend of the Doctor, but it takes the Doctor minutes to recognise him, even though Time Lords usually automatically recognise people they know regardless of their incarnation. Why is it different this time? Simple, the old man's called Asmiel, and a Time Lord without a "the" in his name might as well have cut out one of his hearts. So even though he's an old friend, the old man's stuck working for the snail turd and accepts that the Doctor's probably going to try and fuck his shit up. Even more so because he's found out that he was right about the kidnapped children. So the old man has the Doctor and Perry imprisoned behind a door with 10 million possible combinations.
Did you hear what he said? 10 million combinations.
Well, that's what I mean. It may take even me a few days.
And while this is going on, the guy from Space Precinct wakes up and does what anyone would do in the position of having just woken up on a strange alien spaceship. He finds the wardrobe room and changes clothes. And decides to dress like a Roman slave as costumed by Boy George. This could be a very clever plan. 80% of the bad guys he faces will either be blinded or die laughing. Unfortunately for the Doctor and Perry, the old man set up a self-destruct device that'll go off within a few minutes. So the Doctor turns the room's teleporter into a space-time teleporter that'll send them back to the TARDIS 10 seconds in the past, even though the old man earlier fucked around with it, so if anyone tried to teleport out, they wouldn't be put back together again.
Don't try to follow us. Once we've gone, the transmat will become random. Try to use it and your remains will be spread across the surface of this miserable rock.
So a broken teleporter can be turned into a much more complicated piece of equipment in about a minute. A much more complicated piece of equipment that requires the more basic bit of equipment to be working in order for it to work. And it works.
It worked. It actually worked.
Well, at least the Doctor's surprised. That's something. This is like having a car that'll explode if you try to drive it and getting round the problem by turning it into a drag racer. You need the ability to reconstruct your body if you want to use the teleporter. Turning it into a time machine teleporter does not fix the problem. And then Perry arrives in the TARDIS and is taken hostage by Space Precinct Gigolo. Perry doesn't seem to give a shit about that and switches on the scanner and watches as the boob hill is destroyed. And that's our episode 2 cliffhanger. Is the Doctor okay? Well, we earlier saw him teleported away in the same way we saw Perry teleported away, so I'd guess yes. Ah, but if the Doctor's been sent 10 seconds into the past, then he should have appeared before the explosion. Yes, but he accidentally sent himself 10 seconds into the future. What a douche. So the sight of the Doctor makes the Space Precinct guy not want to aim a gun at anyone for some reason, and he decides to join up with them and take the TARDIS to Gioconda, the planet where the snail turd rules and where the old man is taking the badly acted twins. So on the ship, the badly acted twins talk to the old man.
And your name isn't Edgeworth, it's Asmael.
Yes.
A pointless one too, because they had no idea who you were. Why the pseudonym genius? And yes, don't you dare answer me. So the old man talks to the fatter of the two horny Klingons, who mentions that he set the boob hill to self-destruct, and the old man is shocked and horrified. Oh, thank you, Twin Dilemma, for removing the idea that the old man tried to kill the Doctor. How courteous of you! Going above and beyond the call of duty, you sought out and removed the possibility of drama wherever you could. So we go to the planet Gioconda and see the court of the ruler, the slug turd thing, and the court looks just like a studio. His right-hand man is seemingly played by a collaborator from the conquered planet of the Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats. The snail turd kills this extra with special effects, and thus shows off that he's obviously the villain, which we already knew. So the TARDIS arrives using the same sound as the new series, and the Doctor leads the others to the palace through some tunnels and are followed by an unconvincing and fast-moving humanoid slug. Yes, I know the bad guy of this story is one of these two, but you have a planet full of horny Klingons. Couldn't you have used one of them to follow the heroes? You wouldn't have needed to make them look like they were moving stupidly fast in order to keep up with them. So anyway, the Doctor uses some hieroglyphics to tell the story about how the planet a millennia ago used to be ruled by human-slug hybrids until a drought killed them all, and the natives got their planet back, and some of the eggs survived, and now the slugs rule the planet again. How do human-sized slugs defeat an entire humanoid race? If they were eggs, then they would have to hatch, be raised by no one, and then somehow get the fucking skills to defeat an entire technological species, all the while having the amazing ability to have no fucking bones. You know how this battle should have gone?
I shall rule your planet.
Problem over. And if the gun didn't work, shoot them with salt. So they suddenly realise that they're being followed by some giant slugs, which walk right past them, and as soon as they're off screen...
What a stench! Their gastric tracts. Rotting vegetables.
Or rotting flesh.
they lose the ability to hear. The Space Precinct guy then gets his feet stuck in the slime trail and tries to laser his way out. So the snail turd and the old man talk. It's very dramatic, something about treason that I didn't give much of a shit about. The snail turd is then helped up the stairs because someone decided that stairs would be a good thing to have in a set when you have actors who can't fucking use them because they're in really crazy slug costumes. The old man then explains the situation to the badly acted twins.
That is our sun. That is Gioconda. Those are two lesser planets.
You get that? Those are lesser planets, and there are two of them. In other news, the Pope shits in the woods, the bear's a Catholic, and Spot is a very happy dog. So he explains what the plan is, to take two smaller planets and then move them into the same orbit as Gioconda so they can become new food planets. Okay, I'm pretty sure that having 3 planets so close to each other would fuck something up gravitationally, but what the fuck? Only 25 years later, 26 planets were closer than that and everything was okay. Fuck you, Russell T Davies. Also, I'm pretty sure you need to do some terraforming or something too. Why not just do what you were talking about earlier and use mathematics to create a small sun near the other planets? Why not? Because it'd tie into what was being discussed earlier, and of course we can't have that. And you know, none of this explains why a Time Lord was on the planet of Gioconda in the first place.
Now, I once ruled Gioconda, but now Mester has usurped me.
Okay, that explains why you were there. You were the ruler, but that doesn't explain why you were there. Why were you the ruler? Time Lords are forbidden to interfere with other life forms. Okay, I'll just assume that you were an evil Time Lord like the Master, but the Doctor kept in good terms with you because you were happy just ruling one planet. Poor Master, if only he'd known, he might not have wasted quite so many regenerations. So the Doctor storms off because all through this story he's been having paranoid fits of manic depression. It was a great improvement over the Peter Davison-shaped black hole of personality that he used to be. He then does one of the most awesome Doctor actions of all time.
Villain! Murderer! Doctor! Villains on your head! That's enough, Doctor!
Yeah, I'd love to see David Tennant try that. The old man would die laughing. So fit's over, the Doctor goes back to normal, and the old man begins to tell him the same info that we already knew. That he's not that much of a bad guy, and he's just trying to help his planet and people like the good kisling he is. All this talking allows us to see the Space Precinct guy fail at a basic drama school action scene and for Perry to be kidnapped. 3 episodes in, first kidnapping of the story. For a classic companion, she's doing well. So she's taken to the snail turd who questions the guys who brought her.
Alone?
There was another with her. We left him half dead.
All the better for him to assist in our downfall in the next episode. And then we're back to the Doctor, just in time for him to hear that Perry's been kidnapped and presumably will eventually be put to death.
Perry!
That's the cliffhanger. They're not getting any better, are they? So how does she get out of it?
Why don't you kill her? I find her pleasing. Pleasing.
Well, that was thrilling. So the horny Klingons come in and grab the Doctor, and I've just noticed their noses. Are they meant to have silvery jewellery on them, making them pointy, or is that just a fuck up with the costuming? So the Doctor buys his and Perry's lives by offering to help them move the planets because the Doctor is apparently better than the badly acted twins at this shit. Which I can buy, but the old man is in awe of the twins' skills. The Doctor is not supposed to be a hyper-genius by Time Lord standards. He only seems so smart to us because, well, put it this way, Britney Spears seems like a hyper-intelligent being to dogs. There's something quite wrong with it that genius is being rationed out in this episode. The Doctor barely passed the exams to become a Time Lord on his second go, and the old man was a teacher of his at the Time Lord Academy. I can buy the Doctor being smarter than the old man, or the twins being smarter than the old man, but not at the same time. So the Doctor joins the badly acted twins, the Space Precinct guy, the old man and Perry in working out the calculations for moving the planets. The Doctor does his bit by standing on a table and playing with a model of their solar system.
How does Mestor plan to bring the other 2 planets into the same orbit as Gioconda?
How does he plan on moving the planets? How does he plan on moving the planets? Maybe you should have found that out before volunteering to make it happen.
Well, how will he stabilize Gioconda? 3 planets in the same orbit will exert enormous gravitational pressure on each other.
Oh great, now we get an answer to an earlier question.
By placing them in different time zones. See, each planet will occupy the same space, but will be 1 Giocondan day ahead.
That doesn't make sense. You didn't answer the question. What do you mean? Are they in other dimensions? Have you shunted them into different eras in history? What does that even mean?
Very neat.
Oh, fuck you, David Colin Baker. So the Doctor then points out that if the smaller planets are moved into the same orbit as Gioconda, then their orbits will decay and they'll crash into the sun, creating massive solar flares which will hit Gioconda. Now, I know very little about astronomy except that the dwarf planet Eris really should have been called Xena, so I have no idea if that's true, but I really have to wonder why shit like that didn't happen in the stolen Earth when 26 planets were really fucking close to each other. Anyway, the Doctor has the badly acted twins continue to work and leaves the Space Precinct guy to wonder why none of the baddies have shot him yet, as his amazing ability to dress like an off-duty fireman doesn't really help the project. The Doctor checks out the hatchery of giant slugs that just happens to be next door, and it takes him way too fucking long to work out the obvious. The snail turd wants the planets to go into the sun to cook the surface and let the eggs of his race of giant slugs take over. Which is a brilliant plan, but it depended on the old man. A Time Lord, and I'm still not sure why a Time Lord was leader of this planet, but still, it depended on a Time Lord. Someone with a fucking massive intellect to not realise that the smaller planets would crash into the massive sun.
Why didn't I realize?
Your mind was on other things, my friend.
And it was just hand-waved away. And then they point out that the plan was even stupider than I thought. The plan isn't to cook the surface and let the slugs take over. Oh no. The solar flares will blow Gioconda up and send millions of eggs into space, where one day, millions of years in the future, 1 or 2 might have the possibility of landing maybe on an inhabited planet, and therefore allow orphan slugs with no idea of who they are or where they come from or what they're supposed to do, to maybe conquer the universe if they feel like it. And how come the eggs would survive an explosion that blows up a planet and millions of years in deep space and the eventual crashing into a planet? Genetic engineering. Because that's magical. It really is. And snail turd. Suicidal plan much? So the Doctor sends Perry, the badly acted twins, and the Space Precinct guy back to the TARDIS, which gives the old man the chance to reveal that he's on his last incarnation, and therefore can't turn into John Sim and really annoy me. So in a shot that gives us a lovely chance to see the feathers and grease paint masquerading as a makeup job, the horny Klingons get told to kill everyone but the twins. Bad acting is not a crime in this world, more's the pity. So the Doctor confronts the snail turd, yells at him and offers him a chance to give up. When he refuses, the Doctor chucks a vial of something that looks like apple juice at him. Of course, because there's another 10 minutes to go, it doesn't work. But this is how the Doctor should be, killing when he feels it's necessary. Something that the new series did on occasion, but all too often fucks up on. So the horny Klingons get to the twins and all before they reach the TARDIS, and before long there's a shooting match.
Iron birds of fortune,
emotions, unseen by naked eye.
You might just reach that gun before I can kill you. But I doubt it.
You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
So the Doctor and the Snail Turd are continuing to talk, even though the Snail Turd could melt the Doctor with a thought.
Because in my time, I have been threatened by experts. I don't rate you very highly at all.
I love the Sixth Doctor. He doesn't give a shit about anything, except when he's cowering and crying, or strangling you at random. Anyway, the Snail Turd brags about he's going to take over the Doctor's body because he has a sexier body than him or something. I know that sounds weird, but a slug thing played by Mike from The Young Ones actually took over Perry's body in the next series, so this was probably in fashion or something.
You take over my mind? It would be like throwing a pebble into a lake. It will sink without trace.
He proves he can by taking over the old man. Taking advantage of the fact that the Snail Turd's not currently in his body, he chucks another vial of whatever that was, which melts him. So yay, melted Snail Turd. The Snail Turd's still inside the old man, who, as he's on his last incarnation, brings on a regeneration to kill himself. This does nothing but get rid of the Snail Turd's mind and killing him. That's a bit disappointing. Usually when you try to get an extra regeneration, you end up as a mutant or something before dying very slowly and painfully. So the Doctor and Perry take the badly acted twins home, and the Space Precinct guy decides to stay, because the people of this planet cannot be under any circumstances be allowed to rule themselves. So the episode ends with a reminder to the audience that Colin Baker is the Doctor, and while he's very different from the more popular fifth incarnation, they should get used to that.
I am the Doctor, whether you like it or not.
It also wants me to make a joke about my choice of intro. Yes, Colin, you're the Doctor, for the next 2 series only. More's the pity. This is terrible, make no mistake. It looks like a joke, some of the guest stars can't even act, the villain's plan made very, very, very little sense, elements seem to be chosen at random and strung together by a drunken lemur in the hope that it would work. A bit like a Russell T Davies script. Disappointing that it followed one of the classic series' best stories, The Caves of Androzani. Colin Baker's reign was short, controversial, and he was the first man to be fired as the Doctor. None of this was his fault, though. I might joke about his acting, but the man was the finest Doctor of his decade and my second favourite overall. Now that I've proved I can attack the classic series as readily as I attack the new, next time I'm going back to the future, the new series, where there's so many episodes begging for it.
That's the reveal! Hey! Hey, Radiotopia!
Whatever, I'm taking over anyway.
Now get your ass! Holy crap, Earthbound! This is the most...
Any questions?